All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest shifts in military power we've seen in generations. Seriously, it's this move away from a world dominated by, heavy metal, think jets and carriers, and towards a world that's all about intelligent, adaptable code. The whole idea of the battlefield is getting a reboot, and believe me, the race is on.
Okay, this slide just lays it all out perfectly. It's really a tale of two completely different worlds. On the one hand, you've got the old way, industrial age warfare. We're talking legacy hardware, decade-long timelines to build anything, and these exquisite, super expensive platforms. But on the other hand, you've got the digital age, agile software, updates that can happen overnight. And instead of a few big targets, you have these resilient, distributed swarms. It's a total game changer.
So to really get where we're headed, you've got to understand the deep problems with the past. This mindset that we're going to call the hardware fortress.
I love this quote. This comes from Nan Mulchandani, the first ever CTO at the CIA. And it just gets right to the heart of the problem with the old way of doing things. It's a fantastic analogy.
So what he meant was this. There's this famous restaurant in San Francisco, Cafe Jacqueline, and it only makes these few absolutely perfect soufflés every single night. They're amazing, right? High quality, but you can't scale that. You can't feed an army with it. And that's exactly what the Pentagon was doing, building these perfect, exquisite things that were just fundamentally unscalable for a global, fast-moving threat.
And that's a crucial point here. This whole model has become a huge liability. When you spend billions on one single aircraft carrier or a bomber, its capabilities are basically frozen in time for decades. And whereas if you lose one, it's a catastrophic blow. It's just too slow, way too expensive, and frankly, too fragile for the world we live in now.
Okay, so as people started waking up to this problem, a realization began to dawn on military leaders. They saw that the world had been completely rewritten by one simple, incredibly powerful truth.
You've probably heard this before. The tech entrepreneur Marc Andreessen famously said that software is eating the world. And he was right. It was totally reinventing every industry you can think of. And look, defense wasn't going to be some special exception. The Pentagon just couldn't afford to ignore the biggest technological shift of our time anymore.
For guys like former General Jack Shanahan, these were what he called his seminal experiences, his big wake-up calls. He's seeing the commercial world make these incredible leaps with AI. First, a computer beats the world chess champion, then Google basically solves language translation overnight with machine learning, and then a machine masters Go, a game infinitely more complex than chess. He's seeing all this immense power out there, almost all of it happening outside the walls of the military.
So that realization really lit a fire under people. It sparked this major push for a completely new way of operating, a paradigm built from the ground up on the principles of the digital age.
And this is where we get to the heart of it, software-defined warfare. The core idea is simple. Stop treating the hardware as the main event. Think about it. A drone is just a physical shell. Its brain, its real capability, is the software running inside it. And that software can be updated, it can be improved, and it can be redeployed almost instantly. You can give old hardware a brand new life.
This is just a perfect way to explain the old, broken way of doing things. For years, the Pentagon was basically forcing every single program to invent a brand new iPhone from scratch before they could even think about building an app. Instead of one common platform, every project was its own little island. It was just a recipe for waste and slowness.
Now, when you start thinking this way, it opens up these incredible new strategies, like something called mosaic warfare. Just picture a big mosaic made of thousands of little tiles. If you lose a few tiles, you can still see the whole picture, right? That's the idea. Instead of one giant, juicy target like an aircraft carrier, you have a swarm of hundreds of cheaper, interconnected systems. Drones, sensors, shooters. They're all separate pieces working together, so the loss of any one piece doesn't bring the whole system crashing down. It's incredibly resilient. And honestly, the economics of this shift are just mind-blowing. With hardware, building your 100th F-35 costs about the same as your first one, a fortune. But with software, the cost of deploying another copy, of pushing out a new algorithm or an update to thousands of drones, well, it approaches zero. This gives you massive scale and the ability to improve constantly in a way that hardware just could never, ever match.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing in theory, right? But how does a giant, slow-moving organization like the Department of Defense actually pull this off? Well, a lot of smart people have laid out a surprisingly clear blueprint.
It really boils down to three big things. First, you have to unify the architecture.
That means creating a common digital foundation so that data isn't trapped in a million different places, so a new sensor can actually talk to an old jet. Second, you have to completely change how you buy stuff. You have to reform for speed. Get away from these decade-long contracts and start buying tech like the commercial world does, allowing for constant updates. And third, and this one's huge, you have to invest in people. You need a workforce that actually understands software and can bridge that massive gap between Silicon Valley and the Pentagon.
And let's be clear, making this transformation isn't just about being more efficient or saving a few bucks. This is an absolute necessity. Why? Because the United States is not alone in this race, not by a long shot.
I mean, this quote from a recent national security report just says it all, lays it all on the line. The winner of the next big conflict won't be the side with the biggest ships or the fanciest jets. It'll be the side that can adapt its software the fastest. At the end of the day, speed is the new ultimate advantage.
Because while the U.S. is trying to turn this giant ship around, our adversaries, especially China, are not waiting. They are moving so aggressively on this, integrating AI and software without being burdened by 50 years of old, clunky legacy systems. They see this as their golden opportunity to leapfrog the U.S. and gain a decisive technological edge.
And so that leaves us with the one question that really truly matters. History is filled with stories of militaries that only changed after a disaster, after a catastrophic failure. The challenge for the U.S. military today is to find a way to reboot its entire operating system now, by choice, before a future battlefield forces that change upon them in the worst way possible.